Welcome to Next Ministries. I'm Pastor Mike Miller, and I am so glad to have you with us today. There are so many different things that are happening in Next Ministries, and I'm excited to share them with you. But today, I want to share first with you that today's message is going to be about building our lives. When we build our lives, when we decide we're going to make a particular change in our life and we're going to do something that's different, there's a process that we go through. And a lot of times, if we don't embrace the process, what happens is just like at the beginning of every new year, you make a resolution, you decide there's something you're going to do that's going to be different. You're going to make some changes in your life and you get ready to make those changes. And guess what? Because you haven't gone through the full process, 6 weeks after you said you're going to do this thing, you've already given up on it. You've already walked away from it. And you say to yourself, I'll try it again next year. Or you wait until the doctor tells you something and you say, okay, well, maybe I will get healthy, or maybe I will do this, or some tragedy happens in your life and you decide to come back to it. Well, how about this? How about if you took the moment in your life where you said, look, I'm going to look at this as a full process and I'm going to start working on it as a process. See, God does things not just by happenstance, but God has a process for everything. God has a plan for everything, and God works that plan into our lives. We need to figure out how to work the plan in our lives, and we need to figure out what the process is in order to fulfill what God wants for us in our lives. Before we go any further into today's message, I just want to share a few things with you. If you've been with us for a while watching Next Ministries online, I want you to know as we start off 2024, we're making some changes. One of the changes that some people will like and some people may not like is that we are no longer going to be doing worship music in our services online. Now, that doesn't mean that the services that we begin to stream online from our live in-person services will exclude worship music. But what we've decided is that these messages that I do every week, we're now going to just have them as plain messages because we want to get to the meat of the gospel and we want to bring to you the hope of the gospel and the encouragement that you need to be able to look at how the Bible applies to your life every day and just move straight forward into that. So we're excited about that. We know for some people it's going to be a disappointment, but for others it's going to be a major encouragement. And so we've taken a look at this and we've made a decision that we want to move in this direction right now, especially when we started doing the worship music in our services online. We did that because we were in the midst of the pandemic, and the pandemic has not totally dissipated, but things have changed, and people, as they move more into the in-person experience, we want to make sure that we're providing the experience that you need online for your exploration of the Christian faith and for your ability to grow in your faith and then learn how to share your faith with others. We want to do that through these messages each and every week that we bring to you. Now, another change that's going to happen is that if you watch us on Instagram or Facebook, they're no longer going to be online in the morning. They're going to be online in the evening. You may ask why we're making that change. Well, most of the people that watch our services online are watching them at night, and a lot of them are watching it in the middle of the night. So we decided to premiere them later in the evening so that as you are going through putting your kids down or you're going through getting off of your job or your shift, that you'll be able to catch it either as it premieres or you may be able to just catch it right after it comes online sometime in the middle of the night, as most people do. The other thing that we are doing this year is we're going to encourage you more to find a way to participate and connect with Next Ministries. One of the things that we have done is we have a web page up, nextministries.org/get connected. Again, nextministries.org/get connected. Many people have visited that page and they have connected with us, and we have seen our people grow online and in person as a result of that. And so visit nextministries.org/get connected and find out how you can get connected and we can connect with you to help you on your spiritual journey. Now, everyone, the final thing that I would like to share with you is that as we are going through some of the changes that we are making at Next Ministries to better serve you and serve your spiritual needs, one of the things that we would like to encourage you to do is if you are in the United States, we want you to sign up for our daily text prayers. Our daily text prayers come out each and every day, and we are almost up to our 700th daily text prayer as of this recording. Again, We're almost there at 700 daily text prayers. People read these prayers every day. They share them with friends and family. They post them on Facebook, and hundreds of people get these prayers each and every day. We would like for you to be a part of that experience. And also, it's a way for you to connect directly with me because I write each and every prayer and send all the prayers out. Now, as we move forward into today's message, I'm going to be talking about Noah. Noah is a very unique figure in the Bible because Noah has the challenge of building the ark as God has made the determination that all of humanity has just become wicked. But he's found some saving grace in that in Noah and his family. And we're going to talk about that today. And as we dig into that, one of the things that I want you to think about as we go through today's message is what is it that you really want to do in your life? And have you gone through the process, the planning process, the whole process of getting to that place or getting to that point? Or have you just decided, hey, you know what? I want to get started now, and you jump into the end game hoping that you'll get there right away? Well, let me just share this with you. A lot of us do this at the beginning of the year. We come up with resolutions. As a matter of fact, I go to the gym all the time, and I went to the gym right after the new year, and it was packed solid with all of these people getting into the gym, deciding that they're going to exercise, they're going to get healthy, they're going to make sure that they are ready to face the new year, and they're going to make this change in their body. Well, for a lot of us, we start the new year doing this and saying we're going to get fit and we're going to do all these things to make sure that, we're in shape this year because this is my year. Well, 6 weeks after we get started, it kind of tanks downward. It doesn't go up, it goes down. And suddenly we find that we don't have time to go, or it didn't turn out the way that we wanted it to. See, some of us decide we're going to go to the gym because we want to lose weight, but then we start exercising and the fat starts to melt away and the muscle starts to build up, and then we get a little heavier because we're building up muscle mass. And as we're building up this muscle mass, we get frustrated and disappointed because we wanted to lose the weight. Well, I want you to know that there's a process to everything in life. And yes, you will lose the weight, but the weight, as it begins to shed off and you begin to slim down, what happens is you find that you lose the fat and you start building the muscle, and the muscle is what kind of helps keeps you going. And it gives you get that energy when you get in there and you see that, hey, wow, I'm making the positive changes in my body, but they don't happen overnight. You see, we want everything to happen overnight. We want to get to the end game as soon as possible, but it takes time. There is a process to everything. And with that process, we have to begin to learn how to embrace the process. Many of us don't want to embrace the process because the process takes forever. My son, when I tell him, okay, we're going to do this, but before we can do it, we have to do these things. When he sees me baking or making something, he says, I want to eat now. I'm hungry now. Can we go out and get something to eat? I say, this is going to be better than going out to get something to eat. But we have to make it. In other words, I have to prep the food. I have to cook the food, and then I have to plate the food. There's a lot of things that take place in this process. Many of us don't want to go through the process, which is why we go for fast food. Is why we go running out to McDonald's or KFC or whatever it is that will satisfy our immediate need. But if we really want to experience joy in life, if we really want to experience all that God has for us in life, and we want to make the changes in our life that we want to see happen, we have to put ourselves in a position where we're going to embrace the process. Embracing the process is not easy. It's difficult. And so that's why I have some of these things on the table, because it's the beginning of 2024, and a lot of people are saying they want to get in shape, they want to exercise, they want to feel better, they want to do better. Well, we all want to do all of this stuff. And so we get our fruits and we get our vegetables, we get our cereals and different things that are going to help us feel better. We get our protein in, and we can do all of these things so that we will feel better and we will feel healthier. But as we are doing that, it's a process, and that process means that you can't always just jump right in. Sometimes you have to take steps in. And sometimes when you're taking those steps in, people will criticize you. People will look at you like you're crazy because they don't understand that you are embracing the process. You can't just go in cold turkey and say, hey, I'm going to now become the best athlete in the world. An athlete needs to not only exercise, but an athlete needs to train their body. They don't just start doing everything, they train their body. As a matter of fact, I've been watching swimmers lately. And for swimmers, as they are learning how to swim, it's a process of learning the strokes. You can't just go and do the breaststroke. You have to learn certain strokes first that lead you into the breaststroke. You have to learn how to breathe properly. You have to learn how not to take in a ton of water while you're in that pool swimming. There's so many things that you have to learn, and it's a process to become a great swimmer. It doesn't just happen overnight or because somebody pushes you off of a bridge into the water. What happens is you have to learn to embrace the process. Now, here's where things really begin. The process begins with a visionary. There's a visionary that sees what needs to happen. And so in your life, you are the visionary for your life. You're the visionary that's looking out and seeing what's going to happen and what's to come. You're the visionary that's embracing what is before you. And as you're embracing what's before you, you're seeing that, hey, I'm going to be able to do this thing. But then you have to go through the process of understanding, what are the steps to making this happen? What are the steps to making this a reality? If I want this to be real in my life, what do I need to do to not make it a passing fad or a passing phase, but to make it a reality in my life? And if I want to make it a real reality, it means that I must embrace, wait for it, the process. Let's take a look in the scriptures because there's some things I want us to see about Noah and what Noah has to go through and how God is the visionary that leads Noah down a path that's going to take him through a process, but it's going to end up with something that's going to be great and wonderful for his life and for the world. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on the earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark, and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I am going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons, and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. So let's take a look at this for a moment. Here we are looking at God as the visionary. God is casting this vision of what this is supposed to look like. And I want you to think of this in terms of, if you wanted to build a house, what would your house look like? Your dream house, what would it look like? You have a vision of what that house would look like. You have a vision of what each room would be. You have a vision of all of these things. But in this process of being a visionary, you then have to take your vision to an architect. And so an architect, what they do is they take your vision and they draw it out. They map it out, and so that you can see everything of what it would look like. But then the architect then goes to the engineer, and the engineer says what will work and what won't work. And so the engineer then says, okay, this is how we can make this vision a reality. And then once that happens, then you have someone that now has to step in and oversee that project. In building terms, that's the general contractor. The general contractor oversees the project from beginning to end to make sure that everything is done in an appropriate manner, everything is safe, that everything is done to the point of completion, and that you can walk into that beautiful house. Now, in this instance, what we find is that God has the vision for what's going to take place, and Noah becomes the general contractor. Noah gets all the directives from God and follows everything that God has commanded him to do. Because what God is looking at is that he's going to destroy everything on the earth, but he's keeping what we call in terms of the Bible a remnant. He's keeping a portion of some of everything so that there can be a rebuilding process. But in this, what I want us to focus on is the fact that what Noah has to do is Noah has to now take a look at the process of building this ark and preparing everything for the human race, for all of creation to survive. So he can't just say, okay, everybody, come on, let's go and get on the ark. He can't do that. He has to go through a process. He has to go through the process of building the ark. And now he has all the directives of how big the ark is supposed to be, how many rooms are supposed to be there, how many decks it's supposed to have. And he begins to understand that this is not going to happen overnight. How many of us decide that we're going to do something or we're going to make a change in our life, and we're making this change today? Most people say, I'm making the change today. But the reality is the change does not happen today. The beginning of the process happens today. The change comes later. The change comes when we complete the process, when we go through everything. I remember I was overseeing a building, and this was low-income housing, and we were doing a construction project to better the housing for all the residents that lived in the building. But for us to do that, we had to go through a process. And in this process, we had to determine what we could afford and what we could not afford. We had to determine what we could do now and what we could do later. We had to make determinations on what was best for the residents and what took priority. We had to go through a process. And once we went through that process, then we had to find architects that could come up with solutions to help us to be able to do that. And once they had come up with solutions, then we had to take it to the people that were the engineers and the contractors and say, is this possible to do this? How can we make this happen? And so it was an entire process for us to get to that end part. And guess what? It didn't happen in a couple of months. It didn't happen in a year. It happened over a period of time. So what I'm saying to you is this: Noah didn't build the ark overnight. Noah followed the process that God had given him, and he engaged his sons in that process. And as they engaged in that process, it took time for them to build that ark. Once they were starting to build the ark, think about this. There are people that are thinking that they're crazy. There are people that are thinking that they're insane. What are they doing? This doesn't make sense. Why are they doing this? Why are you building this ark? Well, there's a flood that's coming. Well, we don't see any water. We don't see any rain. What are you talking about? A flood is coming. Sometimes when you're making the change in your life, the change that you're making is not done in secret. It's done before everybody. And people are watching. And there are people that will always be naysayers. There are people that will always discount what you're doing. There are people that will discredit what you're doing. They will talk about you. They will be negative. You have to keep the positive attitude and realize that you've been commissioned to do this. In other words, you are the general contractor for your life. You are the one that's going to see it through to the end. You are the one that sees the highs, the lows, and has the ups and the downs, all of this stuff that you go through in the process. And as you go through this, it's about seeing it through to the end. I remember when we were sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, and I've shared this story before. My sisters challenged me, and when they challenged me to participate in a half marathon. Now, I ran cross country in high school, but it had been years since I ran, and so I never backed down from a challenge. So I took on the challenge, and in that challenge, what actually happened was I went out there and I realized that I could not run 13.1 miles. And so for me to be able to run that, I had to have a vision of what that looked like. I had to have a vision of me actually being able to do this. But beyond that vision, I had to realize that there was a process for me to go through in order to be able to run those miles. And so I found an app that I was able to put on my phone that was a training app that prepared me for being able to run those 13.1 miles. By the end of the process, the week before the race, I ran 18 miles. Now, let me say this, and I'll be very clear. There's no way I could actually make it to a full marathon, but I made it 18 miles in my last run before the race. But what that did was it let me know that I could run 13.1 miles because I had gone through the process of conditioning myself, conditioning my body, whether it was hot, whether it was raining, whether it was storming, whatever the conditions were, I was ready to face the challenges that were ahead of me. Noah is facing many challenges, but his focus is on what his goal is. He's the general contractor. He has to see this through to the end, no matter what people are saying around him, no matter what everything else is happening in the world around him or what's going on with other people. His focus has to be on what he needs to do because God has given him some commands. So for us, what we have to look at is what is God telling us that we need to do? If it means that we need to get in shape, then we have to see that through to the end. But it doesn't all have to happen at one moment. Sometimes we have to take our time to figure out what are the steps to get to that place. What are the steps to get to where we really want to be? Because if we're going to build our life into this wonderful thing that God has desired for us to have, it means that we have to go through a process of letting go, a process of taking on. Sometimes it's a process like I had to go through of determining if I'm going to get in shape. I mean, I need to add protein to my diet every day. And so I started adding protein, having protein shakes and having smoothies where I add extra protein in, having yogurt where I have these yogurts that have extra protein in them, and starting to look at what not just the vision was, but what the process is to get to that vision. So, what is the vision that you have for yourself? It may not be to build an ark. It may not be to save all of creation, but it may be something that you need to do for yourself. Let me share this with you because I've shared this story before and I want to share something about it right now. My god brother, I shared a few months ago that he was diagnosed with diabetes. And when he was diagnosed with diabetes, he thought it was a death sentence. But he had a vision that he was not going to live like that. He was not going to live in that place, that he saw something better for himself. And so he started taking the medication, but he also started doing something in the vision that he had for himself. So what my god brother decided to do was to exercise and do the things that were necessary to come off of that medication. And guess what? He kept working at it and working at it. He lost weight. He went through all this process where he denied himself certain foods and different things and realized that he was healthier. He had more energy. There were things that were changing that were positive about his life. He goes back to the doctor a few weeks ago, and the doctor says, "You don't have diabetes anymore. You can come off of the medication." Now just think about this. He reached his goal. He reached what he wanted to see happen. And he decided that, yes, I'm excited about this and I'm going to wean myself off of the medication. But he decided something else. He decided that the life changes that he made were worth his life. It was worth everything that God wanted him to experience in life. And now he's taking on a new role in his life that physically he's ready to take on. Why? Because he went through the process. And at the end of the process, you don't know what God has for you. So at the end of the process with Noah, here's what happens. God makes a covenant with Noah after the flood has ended and everything has come to a close. God lets Noah know that he made a mistake. He should not have done these things. He should not have destroyed everything. And he will never do this again. The promise is he will never do this again. And so as a part of that covenant that he makes with Noah, he says, whenever you see a rainbow in the sky and I see a rainbow in the sky, it'll be a reminder of what I had done. and a reminder never to do this again. And Noah has the charge now to replenish the earth. Him and his family, they have the charge to start over where others had failed and to replenish all of creation. Now, as we close out, I want to say this. You do not know what's going to happen next in your life. The process that you're going through may be preparing you for something greater that is yet to come that you don't even know about and you haven't even thought about. Don't give up on yourself and don't give up on God, because the process is one that you have to embrace. Sometimes you have difficult moments along the process, and sometimes the process takes you exactly where you need to be. You never know where you're going to go. Now, let me pray for you. Lord, we come to you right now, giving thanks, God, for the process that you take us through. But Lord, give us the courage and strength to go through the process and not to give up, to weather the storms and weather the challenges, to weather the criticisms and weather the naysayers in our lives. And help us, God, to focus on the positive things. Help us to focus on the small steps that we take. Help us to focus on the small gains that we make. Help us to focus on those little things so that when we look back, we see that the little things have led us to greater things. And Lord, prepare us along the way for the good things that are to come, the good things that are yet to come into our lives, the good things that are awaiting us, because we know that through all of these things that we go through, you are preparing us for something greater. This we pray in Jesus' name, amen. Well, I wanted to thank you for joining us today for this message. I hope the message encouraged you. I hope it inspired you. I hope that you took something from it that you can use in your life and possibly share with somebody else who needs to be encouraged. And now, what God has for you is for you. But what God has given you to share with someone, you need to share that with them, because you don't know the day, the hour, the minute, or the second that someone will need a word from the Lord, and that word will come through you. See you next time. If you've enjoyed today's message, consider making a donation to Next Ministries at nextministries.org/give. And to learn more about Next Ministries, visit nextministries.org.